Okay, let's get this thing rolling. No pun intended, Steve.
Yeah, rolling
Um,
strong. Let's get it rolling strong.
exactly. So, hey guys, this is Darren. It's December 2nd, and you're on Road Team Live. Those of you that are joining us live, if you're watching the recording, hello, thank you for watching. And check this out, you guys. We've done, since 2019, we've done hundreds of these Road Team Live shows. And this is the first time that we've ever had a guest from outside of CR England. Every other time, it's been somebody from our management team, or in a few cases, it's actually been one of you guys, one of our drivers. But we're kicking off this new driver health and wellness video series. And I want to thank Ken, who's on screen with us right now, one of your fellow drivers, Ken Wood, from the Foster Farms dedicated fleet. He was a catalyst for, I think, really kind of kicking us in the butt on this. We had already started back a few months ago. We started this Road Team Fitness Club thing, which is about exercise primarily, and that's with our coach Daryl Banning from the Road Team, who was kind of helping us with that. But Ken approached me a couple of months ago with his ideas, which really kind of added another dimension to what we were already doing. And so we have kind of really latched on to that. And it's added this component of what you're going to see soon, which is all about food, all about cooking on your truck, if you're one of those people that lives in your truck, or cooking at home. We have a lot of day cab drivers who get home every night, or a few times a week, or on the weekend, possibly. We don't want to leave you guys out. So hopefully, as we get later into December, we'll start to fire up some of those cooking videos. And Ken has a whole roster of chefs that he has somehow gone out and convinced to help us with this stuff. So that's going to be super cool once we get into that. And then as I was thinking about how we can kick this off, I think there's really no better way to kick off a series about driver health and wellness than having our guest, Steve Kane, on with us today. So Steve is the founder, owner, president. There's probably several other titles there, Steve, of a company called Rolling Strong. And I'm going to let him tell you about that company in just a few minutes. But Steve is one of the foremost experts in the country when it comes to the state of driver health and wellness in the trucking industry. That's what he does. That's what he and his team and his company, Rolling Strong, that's what they specialize in. And again, there's no one better to have as our first guest in this video series than Steve. And I'm fortunate because I know Steve pretty well already from another organization that we both help to lead. So it's awesome. Steve, welcome. Thank you for being our guest today. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And what an introduction. Man, I got some shoes to fill after that introduction.
You can do it. You can do it. I know you can. So let's do this. I wanted to kick this off with a little interview or a little intro from Steve, so you know a bit about who he is and his background, which I think you'll find familiar because back however many years ago it was, Steve, he was a truck driver. So not only does he now own and run a company that specializes in driver health and wellness, he's done the job, back in the day, and he understands what it's like out there for you guys and the challenges and the issues. So, Steve, take us through it. Maybe start with your driving experience. Um, when was that? How many years ago was that?
That was ancient. A little longer ago now, it seems like. No, I mean, look, my dad had trucks. He owned a few different businesses, and one of those was a small trucking company. So, I had the privilege of washing the trucks and doing PMs on the trucks until I was old enough to go on runs with my brothers. And eventually I went on runs and, learned how to drive them and, did a lot of lumping and eventually learned how to drive them. And, after a few college semesters and kind of going back and forth with things and some other challenges. You've heard my, as a speaker, you've heard some of the other parts of my story. And I just, I lay it all on the line. There's no smoke and mirrors. What you see is what you get with me. So, going back as far as, for me personally, being homeless, living in a tent and really some tough in my teenage life. Shined cars and trucks. I went into the truck stops and polished aluminum, and I did that for a long time and rolled up my tent every day and, went out to the truck stop and made money shining cars and trucks. And I saved that money up and I went to
Now,
truck
you
driving
were, go
school.
back a little bit. I want to make sure these guys are catching this. You were homeless. You were living
Yeah,
in a tent,
yeah,
and you
well,
would go to the truck stop and shine up trucks, right?
that's right. That's right. Yeah. And yeah, I lived in a homeless shelter and, I was in New York and I was in a shelter and I, found a good honest way to make some money was to shine cars on the side of the street with some waterless wash and wax stuff I had. And that turned into a truck stop with polishing aluminum and I knew my way around trucks and that lingo from, working for my dad when I was younger. And and so I decided to save that money up and pay for a truck driving school in upstate New York. And I, went from living in a tent to living in the cab of a Kenworth T800 flat top sleeper with a nice crawl through. And when I got into that truck, I promise you, it felt like I had moved into a palace. It was pretty exciting for me. And so I spent, I don't know, that was in the late 90s, I guess, and I spent 3 years driving for Allied. So I was a bed bugger, loading people up with 25, 30,000 pounds of household and moving it from point A to point B and unloading it. Good hard trucking work. And came off the road in Vass, North Carolina, and stayed there for a while and moved on to a place where I found a trucking job in Salisbury, North Carolina, and I worked for Piedmont Transportation, and
Yeah.
that was an LTL carrier, and that was great work because I remember pulling into Charlotte with a 53 footer my first day on the job with 11 stops to kick off the back of that thing, and I was like, what have I gotten myself into? Um, and so I just through the years I transitioned. I was at Piedmont. I think I drove for probably 3 more years for them. So I was 6 years in when they moved me on the dock. I ran the dock operation for a while. They moved me into dispatch into transportation manager. And somewheres in the middle of all that, I was having a hard time sitting in the dispatch chair. Was getting some pains in my abdomen and my chest, and I went to the emergency room one night, and I walked out of there with a new diagnosis of stage 3 bulky lymphoma cancer. And so, it was I was like, are you kidding me? I went from living in a tent to living in a truck to being at the pinnacle of my success as a dispatcher and a kid, a little 2-year-old at home and a little brick house to, you got the fight of your life ahead of you with cancer and chemo and the whole 9 yards. And, so that's when I think there was a big shift in my mentality, which is something I talk a lot about, whether it be, nutrition or fitness or exercise or any type of transformation. It really comes down to who we are inside and what ghosts we want to go back and look at and how we want to change the perspective and the mindset of how we approach everything in life. And so at that time, you think about me on Christmas Eve, sitting there going through some rigorous chemotherapy, sick as a dog, and a knock at my door, and I go out there, and here's 30 truck drivers that I dispatched during that time, all standing there with their jeans and leather jackets and goatees and tattoos and that tough, bunch of trucking dudes out there, all learned
Yeah.
how to sing Christmas carols. And there they showed up with their families, singing Christmas carols and giving me a donation
Wow.
basket with Food Lion gift cards and, fresh fruit and stuff like that. And,
Wow.
and that was a powerful moment. But that was
Hmm.
kind of, the roots, I guess, of trucking and part of the initial transformation for me and everything that moved forward from there.
Wow. Gosh.
I know
It's hard to, that's a lot, dude.
yeah.
Man, you have been through it. And that wasn't, I mean, you weren't done uh getting hurt and having surgeries and being
No,
in
that
the
was
hospital, and
no,
you've
I
had
think
like 18 surgeries since I've known you.
yeah, I've beyond surviving cancer, I've broken 19 bones, including my back, my skull, shoulder, ankle, fibia, tibia, I mean, it goes on, and over a dozen tears in my ligaments and tendons. As a fighter, so I was a boxer, boxing, jujitsu, owned schools, did all that stuff, raced motocross, some were just accidents. And then
Yeah.
eventually, as you know, became an Ironman, ultra, distance, triathlete and all that stuff, and went through some injuries. But the more of these
Yeah.
things we go through, whether it's a hard day on the road trucking, problems back at home with your spouse, trying to lose 10 pounds or 100 pounds, um, the more things that you conquer, the stronger you get. You build resilience like a big old tree in the woods, right? The more that wind blows, the stronger you get. And these things start happening to you, and you're like, oh, another hip surgery. Let's get at it.
Yeah.
Becomes your approach to life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And before we talk about rolling strong, because we definitely want to talk about that, and that gets us into the state of driver health in the trucking industry. Can you just talk about your personal fitness journey? Because I've seen some pictures from back in the day,
Yep.
and 25, 30 years ago, you didn't look like you do now,
I'm a
did you?
100-pound loser, baby.
100-pound loser,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And now when you were at your heaviest, let's say, was that when you were in the dispatch office and when you got the cancer diagnosis? Is that when that happened?
So it wasn't. I definitely, gained weight when I came off the road, and that's a big one I talk about because when I went from boxing in college to, going through a bunch of stuff, being homeless, and then going to CDL school, and I remember them talking about the DOT physical, and I was like, man, I'm in great shape, right? I don't have a problem with any of that.
Yeah.
And I never imagined in a million years that, 3 or 4 years into it, I'd have this strange foreign thing called belly fat and high blood pressure, and I actually had to pay attention to that physical. So it can happen to the best of us. But I had gained some weight and stuff, certainly in dispatch, and wasn't in the shape I was in when I was younger, but it wasn't my heaviest. My body was allergic to the standard protocol for the type of chemotherapy that I had to take. So I had to go live up
Oh,
at Wake Forest Baptist Hospital in Winston-Salem. And they had to experimentally, at a school college like that, come up with a different protocol. It was very rigorous chemo, messed me up, got me through it. But as a
hmm.
result, I gained a lot of weight. I fluctuated, got on with Old Dominion. I was with them for 10 years. Went from LTL driver to running docks to running a terminal in Jacksonville, Florida. Um, and when I went into the boxing gym in Jacksonville, Florida to try to get back in shape post all that stuff, I want to say that I was probably like 260. Um, and at that point, I actually got myself back down to 200 pounds. So I know what it's like to have it, lose it, and go back again. And so, I
Yeah.
was, 200 pounds boxing. I was, sparring with some great fighters at that time, which has some great stories and all. But and then I got hired by corporate Old Dominion and went, flying around installing these things called e-log devices in the trucks for the next couple of years. And I gained that weight back, and so but my heaviest was in 2017. I had just had my first press conference for Rolling Strong. I was walking through the Greensboro airport. I had a magazine in my hand where I was, in a big article in there about Rolling Strong, and I looking at the picture of myself, and I'm like, man, look at how big I am. I'm the president of a wellness company in the trucking industry, and I'm huge. And I had gout, so I'm carrying a shoe in one hand, and I'm carrying a magazine of my bigger self in the other hand, and I'm just, and it's that, that voice in my head of just saying, look how big you are, look how out of shape you are, and this isn't authentic, and just that desire to want to change that. And I went home and I signed up for a 5K, and my wife was like, she's like, what are you talking about? You're just carrying your shoe through an airport. You're gonna go run a 5K? Long story short, I ran that first 5K at the American Trucking Association's annual conference that next year in 2018, and it took me
Yeah.
44 minutes to do it. Right? I was just like,
Mm.
but I got through it. My last 5K that I ran last year, I did it in 19 minutes and 42 seconds. So, when I weighed in at the beginning of that journey, right before I ran that 5K in 2018, I was 286 pounds. And
Wow.
when I weighed in for nationals as an all-world triathlete that qualified for nationals in Atlantic City last year, I weighed in at 188 pounds. So it
Wow.
was just a hair under 100 pounds over that period from 2018 to 2025.
Wow. Gosh, that okay. That's amazing. Um, I mean, and not only have you been in the truck, been on the road, been there, done that when it comes to driving and knowing the challenges and the issues that our drivers face there, but when it comes to your own personal fitness and wellness journey, you've been through that whole thing as well with the surgeries and the chemo and everything on top of that. I just wanted to highlight that for our viewers and listeners because um, the the thing I love about you, Steve, one of the things is that you walk the talk. You do now. Um, you walk the talk. You've been in the truck. You've done that. You've been super duper incredibly out of shape, like a lot of us have been or are currently. And you've made the journey. You know what you're talking about because you've done it yourself. You
Right.
have practiced what you preach.
Yeah, and I'll say that with complete confidence, right? And it's the whole picture. It's not just how we look. I mean, I feel like I look
Yeah.
pretty good at 52 years old. I love the fact that I can go out and run 20 or 30 miles, I'm just as happy with someone that goes out there and walks 3 miles, as I was just as happy when I ran that first 5K in 44 minutes, right? It's all about doing a little bit
Yeah.
better tomorrow than we thought we could do today. And it's also not
There
just
you go.
about how we look, it's how we feel. And it's about those numbers on the inside. So, at the time, when I first moved to Jacksonville and I was getting back into boxing and stuff, I was being treated for a cardiomyopathy. So I had enlargement of the heart. At that time, my
Mm.
ejection fraction was 35%. The ejection fraction is the heart's ability to pump blood, right? That's like an 80-year-old heart patient. That was the impact that the chemotherapy had on my heart. And so not only was I facing, a lot of the typical things that a lot of the people on this call are facing, like how do I find time to work out? How do I eat the right foods? How do I educate myself on the right things? How do I get my spouse to be on this journey with me? Right? There's all these uphill battles we have. But I also had, you have a cardiomyopathy, your cholesterol super high, your triglycerides are super high, you've got a couple borderline glucose numbers that show you could be getting close to diabetes, right? And so it starts
Mm.
to look like this
Yeah.
massive mountain that we have to climb. And absolutely, I climbed that mountain. I'm very open about my blood work. I publish my blood work. I share it sometimes on the Rolling Strong app. My cholesterol, bad cholesterol, triglycerides, my glucose, my A1C, all that stuff is in the green. So it's not just that I'm feeling good and looking good and I do Ironmans, but like I've healed the inside of my body, which means I have
Hmm.
less risk and a greater chance of growing old with my amazing wife.
Yeah.
I can still, hopefully be around when my kid has grandkids and I can, live into those golden years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've climbed
Yeah.
that hill for sure.
Yeah. You have. And that brings us to Rolling Strong and the state of driver health in the trucking industry. Those two things are connected. Um, and maybe just talk for a few minutes about Rolling Strong. What is it? Um, where did it come from? I know that it came out of your passion to help your fellow drivers in the industry with their health and wellness journey, but maybe just take us back to the beginning. How did that all come together, and where is it now?
Yeah. Well, you go back to Piedmont, and when I was sick with cancer, it's funny because at that time I remember saying I'm going to do something to give back to these drivers. Those drivers that showed up, singing Christmas carols with their families, they also created a fund for me, and so they all donated an hour of their paycheck a week every week for 5 months while I went through chemotherapy. Some of them mowed my lawn, some of them, did other things to help me out, and I never forgot that. And so I always said I'm going to do something to give back. You fast forward through the years where I went at Old Dominion through all the different channels in trucking, inbound, outbound, dispatch operations, line haul operations, all these things. And eventually technology, telematics, right? The technology in our industry. I'm at a conference in PeopleNet conference down in Florida, and I was part of what's called a product advisory committee. And they did a survey to the committee and they said, what's the number one thing that everybody would like? And I want to say this was like in 2014 or 15. And they said, what's the next technology we should see in this industry? And the number one requested thing back then was some type of driver health platform in like
Mm,
2014 and 15. And so I'm driving up the Florida Turnpike and I want to say that it was like this epiphany, and maybe it was, but I could see this whole platform and this connected community where we built health resources and fitness resources and guidance on how to eat within the truck stops and how to live this lifestyle, out there in the environment that we do as drivers. And I could see it in terms of technology and investment capital and financing this and building it as a business. So I went home and I had my wife as a saint. She let me put whiteboards all over the inside of our loft apartment in Winston-Salem at the time. And I mapped all this crazy stuff out and started researching the statistics and what the challenges were and building out what I, at the time, thought a mobile app would look like. I cashed in my 401k. I sold my boxing and martial arts school in Concord and all the equipment. And I bootstrapped Rolling Strong. At the time, it was called Truck Fit, and I
mm,
bootstrapped it. And I came home and I had left Old Dominion, and I came home and told my wife that no, I did not go get a job, but I went and started a bank account in a business called Truck Fit, and she wanted to kill me, but she supported me. And soon after, I was able to secure investments from some people in the industry called Velocity. And so we invested, a lot of money and resources in building, this platform through 2017, 18, and then we acquired a company called Rolling Strong, giving a shout out to Bob Perry, who really is probably one of the pioneers in driver wellness, if any of you guys know who he is. And we bought Rolling
mhm.
Strong and we took the name Rolling Strong on and we adapted his coaching model and some of his practices into this bigger tech kind of, approach to solving this problem. And Rolling Strong was born, what exists now. And
Yeah,
when you're ready, I can tell you what that is.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's do that since we're here. What does Rolling Strong look like now, and what if you look at the life of the company? I know you've got some great stats in terms of like number of steps and pounds lost and other key metrics that you monitor for the whole population of drivers that are on the platform. So what does all that look like right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're well over 2 billion steps as a population. We have about 25,000 drivers on the platform. We have dozens of trucking companies that we run this program for. We've helped thousands of people, improve health. And when we talk about, improving health, that might mean for an individual, it might be losing 10 pounds. For somebody else, it might be walking that first 5K. For somebody else, it might be really focusing on lipid panels or getting their diabetes under control. But Rolling Strong is truly, all the pillars of wellness. So we're looking at sleep, fitness, nutrition, hydration, and well-being. Well-being could be mental health. It could be meditation, right? It's just getting, it's that mindset piece of it. And
Hmm.
so the model really it focuses on the individual. So if it's an individual and they want to get in a program, they can sign up, they can download the app, and within that app, they immediately have access to tools that help them navigate through, logging their water, recipes and cooking. And if it's fitness, they can log what fitness workouts they've done, but they can also connect their wearable, so they can pull in any of the workouts they've done. We also have a massive
Yeah.
exercise library that shows all the exercises that you can do in and around a truck or on a bench at the truck stop, or and a lot of it's just motivational stuff in the fitness realm. We track your sleep through your wearable. We have mindfulness tools and the well-being side of it. All of this is gamified. So every single thing you do in the Rolling Strong world, you earn points for. You can cash in those points for rewards. When we run this for a company, when we run this for a company, we're running it as a workplace wellness program. So we're handling, the marketing side of it, getting it out to the drivers, setting up biometric screening events or sending biometric screening kits to people's homes so they can, get their cholesterol readings, their lipid panel readings, all that stuff, and upload it to the system. We have consults with nurse practitioners based on those biometric readings that come back. And so we're running all that for the company. Then we're running competitions for the company. So every company that we have every month is running a 30-day competition that allows people to either compete with steps or compete with nutrition logging or compete with other things you can earn points for. And then we have incentives and rewards. Those rewards sometimes are vacation days, sometimes they are cash money. We probably give out $3,000-4,000 a month in gift cards across all the different competitions that we're running. We have awards brackets programs, so people can achieve success over a longer timeline. So we have a rookie, bronze, silver, and a gold. Companies pick like, hey, I want to see my employees have 3 blood pressures under 120/80 by the end of the year. And if they do that, they can make it
Yeah.
into gold. And if they get into gold, they get a $500 gift reward and they get a discount on this year's insurance plans. So we're very plugged in and integrated to the company to allow the company to motivate their drivers to do something about their health.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the big programs that I'll mention too is the Ready Research program. So, we track
Yeah.
the DOT recertification date. We give reminders 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, 2 weeks, 2 days before the recert exam. Education and videos come with that so people can really learn about, what the DOT medical examiner is going to be looking for on the DOT exam. And based on if they were given a short-term card last time, what they were given a short-term card for, our coaches that
Yeah.
we have can focus on that with them and help them prepare to get that longer term card when they go in for the physical. Um, and we have a coaching network. So we have what we call CDL wellness coaches. They're not only board certified wellness coaches that have college degrees in nutrition and fitness and all the related fields of study, but they're board certified coaches, but they also go through Rolling Strong CDL wellness coaching program, which just teaches them the nomenclature, the lifestyle. I say to everybody that comes to work for Rolling Strong, if you're going to work at Rolling Strong and you're going to work with drivers, you're going to understand it from the perspective of drivers. They have different challenges than other people do, and you need to understand those, and they do. So, our coaches work day in and day out with professional drivers, and so they're not drivers themselves, but they work with them every day, so they understand the challenges and hurdles that y'all need to go through. Um, and so collectively, that's an entire network. Mental health
Yeah.
tools, it goes on and on. It's an ecosystem with every single tool we could have ever thought of and invested in to provide those services
Yeah.
to the driver community.
Yeah. It's cool. And um I have the app on my phone. I was showing it up to the camera a few minutes ago. Um, this organization that Steve and I are part of, we did with our board members and our members of this organization, we did a competition using the Rolling Strong app. This was last year. Yeah. Um, and so we all got to know the app really well, and it's amazing. It's an amazing platform. Um, to me, it's kind of like, if Apple decided that they were going to get into the driver health and wellness business, like this is how they would do it. It's sharp. It's really, really sharp. And before we take some questions from our drivers, I know we've got a few hands up. We're going to get to you guys. The last thing I wanted to ping you on, Steve, is the current state of health and wellness for truck drivers in this country. What does it look like right now? What are you seeing with your, the 25,000 drivers you have on the platform at Rolling Strong? What are you seeing? What does that look like? What are the challenges? What are the issues? And as you kind of name those, I bet you our drivers who are listening live now or watching the recording, they're going to be nodding their heads because a lot of them are going to recognize those things and say, yep, I'm going through that right now. I got high blood pressure, I got diabetes, I've got, heart problems, whatever it is. So can you
Yeah,
give us kind of the picture of that?
absolutely. So, for one thing, and unfortunately, there really hasn't been a study done that accurately and statistically validates the state of driver health in our country for
Isn't that right, Ken?
many, many years,
That is
right?
correct.
So when you look at any of the studies that are out there, you're going to go back into 2005, 2007, and even those studies were done. There was one study done, in 2005, but the study was actually from drivers taken from a pool from drivers from like 1984 to 2000, right? And so,
Mm,
and
mm.
it was a very narrow group of people that study was done for. And so these studies, you have to look at the study and how they're validated. But without question, if you look at those studies, they will point to an earlier lifespan for people that are drivers. You'll point to things like high rates of diabetes and blood pressure and obesity, that 70% of drivers are obese and 17% of those drivers are morbidly obese. Of course, obesity creates higher risk factors around heart disease and other issues. So, I'd like to say that statistically, this is where the state of driver health is in this world. But I think we probably need to do some modern studies to really pinpoint this is what that looks like. What I can tell you from working directly with drivers and my coaches working with drivers, the 25,000 people that we've worked with, and a lot more than that over the years because of turnover. Um, it is consistent that drivers are obese, that they have weight issues. It is consistent that they have problems with diabetes and hypertension and high blood pressure. And ironically, these are all the same things that show up on the DOT physical. Um, and when
Mhm.
you look at the contributing factors to that, it does not take rocket science to figure this out. There's anybody on this call, if they sat and thought about why we are, one of the unhealthier populations in the American workforce, I'm sure we can all pretty much come up with the same thing. We sit behind the wheel 11 hours a day. We're in that truck sometimes 14 hours, maybe some of that 3 extra hours is because we did a pre-trip or a post-trip or we, stood there at a shipper's office. But at the end of the day, 11 to 14 hours of sedentary, non-active, lifestyle. We're going in and out of truck stops. That's how we migrate, right? It's not like we can pull into, Planet Fitness and grab lunch at the smoothie bar and get a workout in. If we can get our truck in there, are they even gonna, is our dispatcher even gonna be cool with that, right? I'm taking an extra couple hours to work out today. And when you think
Mm.
about that 11 to 14 hour clock and the 10-hour reset, most people, they have, 14, 16, 18 hours for their reset. But a trucker, they stop their truck and even people for running local or LTL or whatever, they're driving a half hour back to the house. they're sleeping, they're getting up, and they're shooting back to a terminal to go again. So our industry has really created an environment that makes it very difficult to be healthy because we're sedentary in a truck for long hours, because we have limited hours to actually sleep and get proper rest. And a lot of us are doing that in the bunk of a truck, though some companies do provide pretty nice condo sleepers. It's not the same as being home in your sleep number. And then when you actually go in and look at the choices at the truck stops for what kind of nutritious food you can put in your body, that's really challenging too. Even one of the big fast food chains took the number one thing that I love the most, which was the grilled chicken that you can get. They took that off the menu, right? So I can't even go into a McDonald's and get, hey, give me two grilled chicken breasts. And so very limited choices. And when you're away from home, when you're by yourself in the truck and you're running hard and all the four wheelers are cutting you off and, you're trying to get from, this week to next week and you're dealing with all that and you're missing your family and stuff. For me anyway, when I got to the truck stop at the end of the day, I'd go in to see that Flying J buffet or whatever. And I was like, man, let me just eat. And that's going to make me feel good. And that's going to put me in a complete coma when I get back to my bunk and I'm going to crash, which is the worst thing that we can do. And then the other contributing factor is drinking energy drinks and coffee and 5 hour energy shots and all that to stay awake to make it through that 10th and 11th hour of driving that then has you so overstimulated when you're trying to go to sleep at night, you can't even get to sleep. And if you do, you're not getting proper rest. And so the cycle continues. You wake up tired, you eat a biscuit or something that's not great for you. Your body's not metabolizing properly. It's already tired. You start drinking coffee and energy drinks. You get through the day. So this is a serious lifestyle issue. I'd love to say that we can fix it because we have a cool app and Rolling Strong has built all this stuff. That's not the case. I tried to create everything I could think of, and I borrowed money and built everything I could to build something that will work for you if you have the desire and the commitment to do something different with your life. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to each one of us as an individual, right? We have to say, I want to do this. We have provided the tools, the support, the community, and we have coaches that can educate and motivate to a certain degree. But we're dealing with an environment that's been set up that almost is set up for the individual driver, the human who's carrying the brunt of this industry on their back, for them to fail because of the hours of service, because of the small break that we have, the sleeping environment, limited access to healthy choices, right? And it's an environment that makes it very difficult to succeed. However, I can tell you that we have thousands of people that have succeeded. I can tell you that I have figured out how to succeed. I actually still live on the road. I'm not in a Peterbilt or a Kenworth, though I do have a Freightliner chassis under this 45-foot bus that I migrate. I'm a full-time RVer. Me and my wife live out on the road, so I'm in and out of the truck stops and all that stuff, and we live on the road. So I'm a lot of times dealing with the same stuff, and nothing's really changed. Some of the truck stops have that little circular island that has some fruit in it and some healthy sandwiches and whatever. But that's tough. It's the smallest place to make a decision in a sea of junk food and fast food restaurants, right? And I know you guys know what I'm talking about when you walk into that truck stop and you're tired and you just want something to make you feel good, and you look at the little carrots and celery in the plastic see-through cup, and then you see the sign for McDonald's, Wendy's, and it's tough to make that decision. And so to bring it to a head, Darren, it is a tough environment to live in and make this work. And so we've certainly tried to create the tools. I've dedicated my life. My purpose is to help other people find their purpose. This is what I do, whether I'm speaking on a stage or whether I'm running Rolling Strong or I run into somebody in the grocery store line, right? I mean, this is me. I live, breathe, walk, talk this stuff every single living second of my life, hoping that a person here or there is going to catch and, make their way to, better lifestyle choices. So here we are, all sitting on a call, obviously invested in this idea that we can be healthier and we can, live a little better life. And for you guys, I'm sure you also understand that, again, it's not about how good we look at the beach. which of course we all remember what we looked like when we were 16, 18 or whatever. We all want to look good. But for me, I can remember being home on my 34-hour reset and being so tired, I didn't even want to go out in the yard and play with my kid because I was just dead tired and sluggish, right? And so obesity and high blood pressure and a lot of these other risk factors um, that are a problem because of this lifestyle prevent us from having that energy and the flexibility and the muscular skeletal system that can go out and have fun and roll around and play football and do the stuff or whatever it is. And so, I what I hope is that we can, get more folks that, look at this like, it's a change not just for how we look, but how we feel from the inside out. It's a longevity of life. It's a quality of life. We do not have to be the unhealthiest working population. We can change that statistic, and at some point we can become one of the healthier populations. Hardworking, frontline workers, but workers that actually take pride in their health and they did something about it to change that statistic for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Man, thank you for taking us through that. Yeah, it's you did a great job of explaining how the deck is stacked against a truck driver, especially if you're a long haul driver and you live in the truck, and your non-driving time is spent at truck stops. Yeah, very, very challenging for sure.
Yeah.
We're fortunate at CR England because about 75% of our drivers are actually in a day cab. Excuse me, they're in a day cab. So they're getting home either every day, every night, a couple of times a week, 3 times a week, on the weekend. So we've worked really hard to build a network where most of our drivers are in a day cab. And hopefully that makes it, I think that probably makes it quite a bit easier. I'm not saying it's easy, but it makes it easier compared
Yeah.
to living in the truck all the
Yeah.
time.
It makes it easier. You still have, 11, 14-hour days. You still have your ride home, your ride back, better sleeping quarters. Hopefully mama or papa, whoever's waiting for you on the other side, is on the same plan and trying to eat healthy with you.
Yeah.
But, look, I say this, we refer to it as drivers, people, drivers' health, and like you all and me, like we're humans, we're people. Yeah, we have it a little
Yeah.
tougher. We have more obstacles. We got to kick around to do it, but it's not impossible. It's absolutely
Yeah.
possible. There's thousands of people out there living a healthy lifestyle. I did it. I did it while I was driving truck when I was at the Jacksonville Old Dominion terminal. They all thought I was crazy when I turned my pre-trip into a morning workout. And on my lunch break when I'd go out, jogging, and so there's ways to do it if you really want it. And running, regional, super regional, day cab home every night or every other night makes it a little bit easier, but it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
And there needs to
It
be,
is.
extra tools and support, to combat those challenges.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, you ready to take some questions from our drivers
Sure,
that are live with us here?
sure.
Okay. Let's see here. Daryl, are you there? I know you have a question. Let's get you first.
Absolutely. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir,
Yep.
Daryl. How you doing?
Jump in.
I'm Mr. Steve. I have been so excited to speak with you and hope you get a chance to go even further. I've been a fitness geek since I was little, mainly out of survival, coming from an abusive household and all that good stuff. And Mr. Darren has talked you up to, just so you know, I kind of got you on a pedestal already. And hearing your story, I've been praying on this question. Being a person that loves to motivate or loves to inspire, John Maxwell says, people only change really for 4 reasons. When they hurt enough, they have to. When they see enough, they're inspired to. When they learn enough, they want to, or they receive enough and they're able to. So as somebody, I've never been the obese person. I've never, been the person that, had to buy, a 5X shirt so I felt smaller. I've always been kind of physically fit. And when I was a personal trainer, when I had somebody in front of me, it was easy to use my words and my body language and all that good stuff to help motivate people to find their purpose or to start to want to get out of that depression. my question to you is, since you've been on both ends of the spectrum, several of us on the road team, that's just our passion. We love to help other people. And, we try to post videos and we try to do this, talk to people and, help inspire them. But, you said the key word is it's up to the individual. So as a coach and as a professional, and to be honest, from what I'm hearing, as a person who loves and lives to help others, what are some key questions we can ask, or not trick phrases, but something that we can say or ask to help these people? Because obviously once they've gotten to a certain weight, the depression has to be set in. Our industry is hard. Most of the time when I ask people, hey, what do you do in your spare time? It's video games, I watch TV, all this different stuff. So I wonder what they're feeding, their mind to help get mentally strong so they can get physically strong. So really, I want to pick deep into your brain on what are some things that we can, again, ask or say something to help kind of dive into those people to get them to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, I guess is the easy way to say it.
Yeah. Well, there's a, the interesting thing is that listening to everything you said, it sounds like you have some of those answers, and you may or may not, even know that you have some of those answers. And I think, the biggest thing is I don't have any specific set of questions, but what I can tell you is there's something about the way I talk to people, and there's something about the way I listen to people that allows those conversations to become very organic. And when that happens, I feel that I get the best, the deepest, and the most truthful version of those people and what's bothering them. And I believe that most of us that have problems with our health, that are controllable problems, things, it's what we're putting in our body, it's if we're exercising or not. I think a lot of that is a reflection of other things that live in our past. So aside from this, I have a whole talking thing I do called the box of life. The whole concept of the box of life is we drag around this big old heavy box behind us, and it can be really tough to drag that thing around. And if you're willing to stop and open that box and look inside and deal with it with truth, only then can you take those painful old things that live in that box and turn those things into purpose. You can turn those things into tools. And instead of dragging this big old heavy box around, you're suddenly carrying a lightweight toolbox. It's like, let me set this thing down and pull my next best tool out. And to get there, it really takes that truthful outlook on what's in, what I say, it's up to you as an individual. It takes that very truthful outlook of what's inside you. And so, with you are somebody who, came up through, and I can empathize with it, right? I also came up through an abusive lifestyle. I was in institutions and boys' homes. I was in a homeless shelter. I had this whole gamut, right? I'm very open about that now. I used to fear talking about that stuff because I was like, man, I'm going to get exiled from the trucking industry as a professional if I talk about the fact that I was a homeless guy that, lived in an institution. And so I think when we, it's not what we say, but it's how we say it, and it's how we listen. You ever have somebody, they start talking to you, and then they ask you a question, and before you can really get it out, they're telling you the next thing they want to tell you. That's the opposite of meeting people where they're at, right? You're just trying to drive the conversation to where you want the conversation to be. But I think it's really important to ask a question, tell something about yourself that's relatable to them, and then ask that question and just listen and let them start to open up, and then ask another question. I think that's a great way to start. That's what I do, all day, every day. That's why my conversations become more meaningful and purposeful, because of that authentic way in which I try to engage people.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, instead of being so quick to say, hey, let me teach you how to eat, maybe just share more of my own story and what motivated me to stay physically fit and to keep that drive in life.
Yeah. and then ask them questions, right? Just ask an open question, like
Okay.
tell me about your
Yeah.
eating habits, right? And let them tell them themselves, and you got to remember when you're talking to somebody about, whether it be, phase one fitness or phase one exercise, or you're talking to an athlete, everybody wants to tell you the good stuff and the things that they're, doing right. And,
Right.
so, you got to be patient enough to get past, the baseline part of the conversation, and get to
Mhm.
know them at a little, more deeper and authentic level, and let them start to tell them themselves. And the more they start to tell them themselves, the more they start to really talk about what's bothering them, or what their hangups are, or what their challenges are. Only then can is it really the best time to start giving them feedback. Because if we just start giving them feedback, if I ask you what's your challenge, and you're just like, well, I have a hard time, cutting carbs. I love candy. And it's before you're even done, I'm jumping in and saying, well, here, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. You're just going to feel like I'm a teacher pointing my pen at you, right? I'm getting on you for not doing it right. I'm just talking to you. I just want to hear about what you think your issues are. And after you've told me enough stuff, I'm going to pick one of those things to build on.
Okay. I'm gonna let other people ask questions because I could sit here all day and pick your brain.
Yeah, me too. Well, I'd love to
Thank
talk
you,
to you
sir.
some other time. Feel free to reach out. I'm an open book, man. You can get a hold of me anytime you want to.
Yep.
Yes, sir. I appreciate
I
it. I'll
can
get
make
the
that.
number from Mr. Dan. Okay.
Yep. We'll make that connection for sure.
Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
267-748. You've had your hand up for a while. I'm going to click on you, and then you are going to hit *6 to unmute. So here we go. Sometimes it takes a minute depending on your cell strength, your cell signal strength. Think we got you. Nope, still not unmuted. Let's go to the next one. 972-849. Going to click on you, and then you're going to hit *6 to unmute. Maybe they fell off. Those hands have been up for quite a while. Marcus, jump in. Unmute and jump
All
in.
right. I appreciate taking my question. So like Darren had mentioned, we've been discussing health and wellness for some time now on the road team. Um, it's really got me thinking where I was when I was a younger man. I'm getting into my 40s now, and this lifestyle has begun to take its toll on me. So I've kind of made a decision to starting next year. My New Year's resolution is going to be to try to take better care of myself, get in better shape, right? So my question is, it can't be all health food all the time, right? You've got to be able to have a taco or a burger here and there, right? Like there's got to
Yeah.
be a way. So I'm still working on it, but I love a burger, and I love my tacos. So I just got to
Yeah.
see how that could fit, and how that might work.
Yeah. Yeah, well, no, that's a great question. And absolutely, you should, allow for those treats. Like I think that anything that is too stringent, it's just, it's going to be so tough to follow that for a long period of time. This is about how do you, change and adapt, to an acceptable lifestyle, right, that works for you long term. That's why we get into yo-yo dieting, right? We eat really healthy for a little while, then we're just like, oh man. And then as soon as you eat that cheeseburger, you beat yourself up over eating that cheeseburger. And that when you beat yourself up, that negative, kind of, mindset happens. And then you feel like you've broken some bond with eating healthy. And then you just go back to eating cheeseburgers again. Really what
Yeah,
you should do is say to yourself, you know what, I'm gonna allow myself, a cheeseburger. But when I'm done with the cheeseburger, it's over. And in time, you'll actually start to learn how to modify that cheeseburger. And so that cheeseburger, you might end up eating a plant-based burger someday. You might end up eating a cheeseburger without a bun, right? Because the more you reward yourself for being healthy and not beat yourself up for making choices that aren't so healthy, right? The stronger your mindset will be, and it won't hurt you as bad when you make that bad choice. Um, so how often are you eating the cheeseburgers now?
I plead the fifth on that one. No,
Yeah.
2 times a week. I'm not the healthiest of eaters.
Yeah.
So, but we've been discussing it on the road team. So, it's really got me to thinking. I'm getting older, and I'm starting to feel it. So, before it gets out of control, and I'm going into this DOT physical, coming out with a short term.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep my 4 year, so or my 2 year or whatever. So I'd like to try to get ahead of it. I really want to hit the ground running come this New Year's Eve. I'm going to start the new year off, or try to attempt to, on the right foot.
Yeah. So, hence the last conversation that I had, right? Ask a question and listen. Ask a question and listen. You already know the truth, right? You're eating too many cheeseburgers and maybe other stuff, so you're
Yes.
not real happy with the choices you're making yet. But you're looking out into the future and you're saying, I'm going to change this on the first. You're worried about your DOT physical. You're worried about your health declining in your 40s. You certainly have a good reason why. You certainly understand some of the things maybe shouldn't be doing. So now you need to put that into action. And I'm rooting you on, man. On the first of the year, stick with that. But there's a good chance that halfway through January, you're gonna, come home and you're gonna decide to eat that sloppy cheeseburger. And I just, don't beat yourself up too bad. Just say, you know what, I'm a human and I ate a cheeseburger, but tomorrow morning I'm going to get up and I'm going to get back on track and I'm going to eat that healthy meal.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me know how you're doing,
Yep.
man.
And
Good luck to you.
yeah, by the time we get into January, we're going to be doing some of these cooking on the truck videos with the chefs that Ken has lined up, and we got you, Marcus, and anybody else that wants to make a change. Absolutely. Area code 310508. I'm going to click on you. Let's hope this works this time. I'm going to click on you, and then you're going to hit *6 to unmute. There we go. We got you.
Hi, Darren.
Hey, Vinod.
Yes, I'm Steven. Thank you for
Hey,
bringing
what's
this.
up, dude?
Good, thank you. Thank you for bringing this kind of information for all of us. As Steven mentioned about that we all knows about what to eat, what to not to eat, and what to do for being healthy. And he just opened himself. Sometimes we have a fear not to tell the story of our own, but how he motivating us, that saying that how he was homeless or living in a truck. This is not part of homeless, but whatever he says is so perfect that we all living in the same world, but we afraid to tell our story. But he just opened himself and he said, like, why shy? Keep moving on, no matter rain or shine or good or bad, keep moving on. Healthy food, yes, we can control these things. So I'm so thankful that how he mentioned, because I was feeling the same way. I used to run 5 kilometers before, but being busy work at the workplace, so I just focus on my work, and sometimes I just take a circle of my truck and trailer and just like a 10 to 12 round and just try to be healthy. And it's just like a mobile gym. So sometimes exercise up and down on the climbing up on the truck and trailer, on the trailer, on the door, driver seats. So that's why I feel like exercise. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this one. That's how he
Thank
brings.
you.
I used to
Yeah.
eat so much
So
stuff. Yeah.
thank
Go
thank
ahead.
you
Yeah.
very much for your words. And you pointed out another one of the key virtues that I live by and I like to talk about, which is vulnerability. I think vulnerability is an important value that's far less utilized than it should be. We all want to talk about the things that we can do the best. We want to raise our hands when we know the answer to the question. It's less often that we want to be vulnerable enough to talk about the things, our shortcomings, our weaknesses, our challenges. And I like to do that. I like to put myself out there to motivate and teach others that it's okay to do the same. We look, anybody can get on this call and tell me how great you're doing and the great choices you're making. But, like the reason for you being on this call isn't to tell us how great you're doing. The reason for you to be on this call is because you're interested in doing something better for yourself. And sometimes it takes that vulnerability to telling yourself and say, I'm not doing so good. And I can promise you, even though I'm in great shape and I will probably run 2 or 3 Ironmans next season and do all this crazy stuff, that I will also make bad choices, that I will also break down and I will eat a chocolate bar because that's one of my vices. But I can also tell you that I haven't had a sip of alcohol in 26 years. So I mean, there is something very special that comes through sustainment. And the longer we do something and the more we practice it, the more rewarding that becomes. And the more we do that and we're vulnerable and try to be a little bit humble about it, the better chance we have of inspiring other people. And that's what's so beautiful about this community, this group of all these people on here trying to do something good and positive. That's the power in it, right? Is us being on here and sharing with each other, not just our successes, but our vulnerabilities and our shortcomings. So good stuff. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Because not even this one, because you just like a rock. When you say like you are drinking alcohol, and from 26 years, you made yourself rock. No means no, and keep moving on. That was a wonderful thing you said. Because I used to eat a lot of food. So my wife making very healthy food, and I eat or drink like a soup first. So I feel like a full. Then I read the things I don't like it. I don't unhealthy. So there's no way I can put the unhealthy stuff in my stomach because I already had the healthy food. So thank you. I just want to thank you. Appreciate bringing this thing to everyone. Very nice. Thank you. We don't need to pay the money to doctor if we are healthy. We save the money for future so we can have a better life. Thank you.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, Vinod. Appreciate
Thank
you. Big Slice was trying to get in here. Did you unmute, Slice? We got you.
Think so. You got me?
We got you, brother.
Slice.
Talk to us. Talk to us. What it is.
What it do, man? Oh man, I'm the big guy of the road team. I'm the 5X.
He's a large human being.
I'm the 5'7" wearing the cover everything up guy. But yeah, my problem was I was doing real good when I was in a controlled environment. I was in Pennsylvania in a hotel, going to a hotel every day, swimming, eating right. Now that I done got back out here, I'm seeing how challenging it is to do stuff, to actually get it together. Oh man, and like right now when this conversation started, I was sitting there eating some rice and a quesadilla.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like stop midway to your mouth with a quesadilla, and you're like, wait a second. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So that's what I'm battling. My problem is being comfortable with a routine, and once that routine is broken, oh man, it seems like I default right back to the behavior.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have the same challenge. I actually kid about it all the time. My wife, she does fuel tax reporting for our industry, and she's very structured, and I'm lucky to have that. Now it's hard for me sometimes because but I feel like it's a gift because she puts that structure in place, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, no, not another rule. But then I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I have the structure and these rules, because for me, when I don't have that structure in place and that consistency, it does make it difficult for me. And that's usually when I'll slip up as well. So I feel your pain on that. Sounds like you had a nice consistent routine going with the hotels. You had a place that you can go in and swim and stuff like that. And now you've fallen off that. Sometimes for me, it takes going back to what I call the whiteboard, or it could just be a sheet of paper. But just, mentally mapping out, or just putting it down on paper, like what that new structure could look like in the environment that I'm in. And so once I see that, I now have a vision of what that could look like, because I am a believer. that in any circumstance, we can find a way to create a healthy structure in our life. I've done it in a truck. I've done it with a heart condition. I've done it as a cancer survivor. I had to go to the Philippines last year for some real traumatic stuff that I went through. And when I was over in the Philippines, I created an exercise program with all the little kids over there, and we went and we trained every single day. And I maintained, and I came home, and the second day home from a long trip to the Philippines, I did an Ironman up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So we can do it. It's up to you. You might want to sit down and just mentally map that out on a piece of paper. What structure can you put in place in the environment you're in right now, and play it back to yourself, right? Does it seem realistic that you can do it? And then give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Great point. Great point, Slice. Appreciate that. Marcus, did you want to get back in with another quick question?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Go
While we're on the subject, I was just thinking, could you maybe recommend maybe like a good starting point for someone who wants to take the steps to getting healthy? I'm trying to figure out where would be a good place to start. Of course, eating, but I don't know like what kinds of foods and what's good starts, what's bad, and stuff like that. So trying to see if you have like a recommendation, a link or somewhere I could go or we could go to,
ahead.
possibly have like a starting point.
We're going to be
So,
taking you through that, but go ahead, please, please. I'd love to hear your answer, Steve.
yeah. Well, I mean, first off, we're glad to forward some. We have a massive, all of our coaches that do what they do, they also write education, and a lot of education that's consistent with what you're talking about. So we have a ton of education. I'm glad, Darren, to forward some of that to you guys, and you can disperse it amongst your team here. But getting down to like, the realistic approach, like, tomorrow when you wake up, what do you do tomorrow, right? You're in your truck. You have a choice. Are you home every night? Are you a driver who's running a day cab and you're home every night?
No, sir. I'm at the truck stop right now. I get home once a week,
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is, I'd love to paint the picture that there's a silver bullet, like here's what you should do and here's what you can eat. You're just asking, how do I get started? So I have to ask you,
Yeah.
like, what's your environment, right? What do you have access to? And I'm guessing that when you left the road, you didn't pack a cooler full of, healthy foods and, healthy snacks. So right now you're relying on the vending machines and truck stop cafes and burgers, right? So, but there's a couple things to keep in mind when you're driving a truck. There's really no great time to eat a big heavy meal. So, and it's just different for us, right? Because if you get up and you eat a big heavy meal for breakfast and you hit the road, within 45 minutes, you're going to start to get tired because your blood sugar is going to start to crash and you're going to start processing that food and you're going to get tired. If you do it at lunchtime, same problem. If you do it at the end of your day, it's even worse because now you're going to go to sleep with all that heavy food on your stomach and you're not going to get good rest. And so breaking your meals down into smaller meals during the days that you're driving and eating meals that are less in fat and less in complex or less in carbohydrates and less in processed sugar is a great place to start. Things that your body can process easily and things that's more like throwing a log on the fire instead of flash paper. So healthy proteins, things like avocado, even you want to be careful of that fresh fruit because it's, again, that's like flash paper. So if you eat too much carbohydrates from your fresh fruit, you're going to crash, you're going to get tired. And these are important things, while you're behind the wheel. And if you want to eat a cheeseburger, if you can just hold yourself off until you get on your next 34-hour reset, you also can pay attention to another rule that I live by, which is if I'm going to eat something that's going to try to add to my waistline or, isn't the healthiest thing, I'm going to do it on a day where I'm more active. So on days that I'm less active, it's much more important to eat healthy things and stick to those nutrition rules of thumb. On a day that I'm able to get more work in, I'm going to, make that a cheat day if I'm going to have one, or I'm going to eat something that's higher in sugar, like, fruit, or, even if I'm going to break down and eat a candy bar or something, because when I go out there and work out, I'm taking that flash paper and I'm burning it off before it can turn into fat in my body, right? And sometimes that can get you through a work week saying to yourself, I only got to make it 2 more days to eat, these smaller meals and, more nutritious meals. Because on Saturday, I'm going to feel good when I get out of the truck. I'm going to go for a 5 mile walk with my wife or whatever your pick is. And that's the day I'm, maybe going to do something a little different. Hopefully that's I know we have other people to get to. And again, feel free to call me, text me, get a hold of me anytime. I'm glad to talk to anybody. So.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great.
I've got some Hungry Mans and stuff. I've tried like portion sizes and stuff. So I don't know if that's really, but those really aren't good for you either, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
only so much you can do out here, so,
Yeah.
but thank you
Well,
very much.
when you get to that buffet, put 90% of the, of vegetables on your plate, and you might not love the way they taste at first, but that's because your body is addicted to, sugar and fat and the things that you're eating in cheeseburgers. And when you start feeding yourself healthy things, your body is going to start to crave healthy things. But, if you put 90% of the healthy stuff on your plate and you eat that first, then there's not a lot left for the bad stuff. And, rinse and
Yeah.
repeat. Look, guys, at the end of the day, there's something that's valuable to us all, and it's just called good old-fashioned discipline. Like we can, I can give you a lot of hacks and things, and I'm glad to do that. But that comes back to that self-accountability, which is fueled by discipline. Challenge yourself this week, for the rest of your time on the road to put 90%, healthy stuff on your plate, and do it in smaller meals, and just see what happens by the end of the week.
Yeah, good advice, Steve. Um, can you take a couple more questions? You okay on time?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Awesome. Ken, did you
Yeah.
want to get in there real quick? I saw you raise your hand there.
Yeah, real quick. Really appreciate the presentation and your time. I would just ask, what percentage of people make it? Like, if you make it to 1 month, that you make it to 2 months, that you make it to 3 months. What do you
Hmm.
see in your program where people start and finish or keep on going versus stopping? Do you
Right.
have a number there?
I don't
Hey, thanks
have
again
an.
for your presentation.
No, you're
Look forward
welcome.
to working with you. Yeah.
And I don't have an exact number on that, but your intuition that fuels that question is absolutely correct, right? There's a lot of people that start this program. There's a lot of people that, gyms, depend on this kind of thing. Sign up for
Yeah,
a
they
year
do.
membership and make the commitment, because we know you're only going to come in for about 6 weeks and then you're going to fall off. So there, attrition is a real problem with any kind of, wellness program. That's why in our program we have the incentives and the awards brackets, and we do all these things. And people are like, "Well, you're bribing them to be healthy," and I'm like, "You're darn right I am. If I got to bribe people to be healthy, but it saves their life, then I'll do it all day long."
Yeah.
It is absolutely, a challenge to stick with programs like this. I see it all the time, and I haven't been perfect, Ken, since the beginning either. I've gone up and down. I mean, when I was in Jacksonville back when I was working at OD, I got down to 100 and 90, 200 pounds. I was boxing. I was in great shape, and when I went back on the road, I got back up to 286. I wasn't born with the genes and the perfect beach bod and all that stuff. I'm in the boat with the rest of you guys. It's always going to be a challenge. It's going to be work for me. But for this run here, I'm about 5 years of consistently staying healthy, and making good choices, and maintaining a good weight, and being a pretty high level athlete. And so, some of that has, come from just not giving up, right? And just practicing discipline over and over again.
And I would
Yeah.
just
It's
add,
like a
I
muscle.
really like what you said earlier about, extending your life. A lot of people talk about their most important stop. I think if more people realize that you're doing this to add time to your life, and I think anybody on their deathbed wants more time, for sure. And this is what you're doing in advance to help that along. So
Absolutely.
I think you're giving people extra, just not months or weeks or
Years.
possibly a decade, and who doesn't want
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
at the end of their life? So I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
applaud you for what you're doing.
I thank you very much. And I know what that's like, because not once, but a few times in my life, unfortunately, I've been on that bed, right? I've been in Wake Forest Hospital where they couldn't treat my cancer. And every single night, I went to bed alone in my room thinking that they can't figure out how to treat this. And I'm only going to live for a few more months and that's things going to catch up with me. And so I think when you go through something like that, I was also, I have a book coming out in the spring, called The Box of Life, where I
Good.
tell all the stories. But and the other thing is, I got hit by a truck, on a motorcycle when I was 19, broke my back, my skull, my shoulder, and my ankle. I was in a coma. They gave me 24 hours to live. And so for me, I look at those were my gifts. Those were gifts to me because I came so close and I had to come to that reckoning. I had to feel what it's like to think I'm not going to make it another day. I might not be here. And then I was spared and now I have faith and now I have purpose. Right. And so I live every day thinking, man, I want to be here for as many years, man. I got an amazing wife. I want to grow old with her and have I got these two amazing dogs. I wake up every day and I really say to myself, what amazing stuff can we get into today? And that's a great way to feel. Now I could go out tomorrow and get hit by a car. I could have some weird thing happen because cancer can creep up on somebody who's been perfectly healthy. I get that. But I've reduced the risk factors by being healthy and making good choices in my life. And if one of those by chance things doesn't happen to me, there's a good chance I'm going to be here at 79 years old climbing a mountain with my wife. And that's what I'm shooting for. Yeah. That's what I'm shooting for everybody I talk to.
I'll just say Jerry Block and I'll point it to you later. If you ever heard of Jerry Block. So.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that, Ken. Before we take our last question, I want to make sure everybody who's on here with us now knows we're doing another road team live on Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and it's going to be Angela Stanford. This is one of Ken's connections that he's bringing to us. She is an amazing RDN. She's a registered dietitian nutritionist. So we're going to get more into food on Friday. We're really going to be talking about food on Friday as we kind of map out this series that we're doing. So come back for that, 11 a.m. Pacific time on Friday, and I'll send out the call-in number. Last question here. I think it's Tyler, area code 517. I'm going to click on you, and you're going to hit *6. We got you, Tyler.
You there?
Yeah, we got you. How's it going?
All right. Hey, yeah, good. Hey, Steve, thank you for sharing. It's a pretty amazing story.
Hey, Tyler, good to meet you.
Yeah, and I just like real quick, I'm gonna get an inverter in my truck hopefully here soon, and I want to start cooking some healthy stuff. And I just need if you could send me a link or however I need to. I don't know how to watch that. Instead of calling in, I'd like to.
Yeah, we're recording this, and we're going to put the video onto the Road Team YouTube channel. We're also going to put it in the Road Team private Facebook group. So if you're not in there, we'd love to have you in there with us, Tyler. Are you a member of that Facebook group?
No, so it's called Road Team. Is that?
Yeah, go to your CRE Toolbox app, click on the main menu, scroll down a little bit and click on Road Team, and it'll open up a whole new page with all of our links in there. And one of them is our YouTube channel, and one of them is to get into our private Facebook group. And I see you're new. You're way new, dude. Wow. Your 1 month anniversary is tomorrow. Congrats.
Sweet. It's awesome.
Are you new to driving or just new to us?
New to you.
New to us. Okay. Welcome. Awesome, dude. Glad you tuned in. We got you, dude. In terms of cooking on the truck, that's exactly what we're working up to. So later in the month, and certainly as we get into January, we're going to be showing everybody how to cook on that truck, how to do it, what appliances you can use, what are the best ones to use, what to cook, how to cook it. We're going to get way into that stuff, man.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what kind of info I would like. So I'll definitely join that page.
Awesome. Stay tuned. Yeah. Right, stay tuned. We got you. Thank you. Okay, Steve, we got to wrap this
Hey,
one
Mr.
up.
Darren, can I steal just 1 minute?
Yes. Get in there quick.
Okay. Hey, just something listening to everybody, and I believe Mr. Steve is the best person to talk about this. Sir, can you talk about, especially the men, the importance of a community or an accountability buddy when it comes to mental illness, or when you start a plan? The more people you have in your corner, the bigger the success. But really, because this time of year, it's kind of hard on a lot of people, and then when they're trying to start their health journey, that can be even harder. So can you speak to the importance of having a community around you and reaching out, and just even if you just need a buddy to talk to you?
Yeah, no, and that's and that's what I was saying a few minutes ago, that I was like, this is beautiful that you guys have this, as an example of a community, that you have a place where people can come and talk about the good and positive stuff, but also creating an environment where people feel trusting enough to be a little bit vulnerable and talk about some of their challenges and some of their shortcomings, and some of the stuff they're dealing with. So I'm huge on community. Community can actually exist with two people. I think it's important to open yourself up and connect with somebody. When you're doing it at the most base level, like an accountability buddy can help you make sure you get those workouts in. An accountability buddy can help you make sure you eat the proper foods when you're sharing it and stuff like that. But as you get into a bigger community and stuff like that, all that positivity, it can fuel progression in a positive way. That's why, like at Rolling Strong, we have a social app, just like a Facebook, right? You can post, link, share, friend people, message people, compete with people head to head, one-on-one, and all that stuff. So as truckers, we spend more time on the road by ourselves than a lot of people ever have to. Even if you're local and you're going home every night, you're still in that truck by yourself all day long. And that can always, make things tougher. And I'm also a big advocate for mental health awareness. I'm a big advocate for veteran support. And I spoke at a mental health benefit conference about a month ago. I opened for a band called Saving Abel, and they had me come and speak on mental health support at that concert. And so, I'm somebody who experienced mental health challenges in my teen years, in my early 20s. It was a big struggle for me prior to getting sober, and building and developing tools to help me navigate now. And so I'm also very open about that, to fuel what you're talking about, that sense of community, accountability, and building trust with people that I talk to, because especially with mental health, it's such a stigma and nobody wants to talk about it. I'm like, hey, put the spotlight on me. I'll be the mental health person, right? And you know what? That this is what I've done with my life, and it's possible to get through those hard times. I've dealt with incredible trauma, just not on my own, but family members, and most recently this last year, we had a horrible family tragedy that was just incredible trauma that rippled through our family. And I have somebody in my family that really struggled with being alone and trying to deal with loss and all that kind of thing. And it was important for him to stay connected to groups and family to get through that. And so I urge all of us to be open-minded to people that might be going through trauma or mental illness or any of those kind of struggles, because it could be any of us, and it could be any of us that have loved ones. I'm betting that probably everybody on this phone call has a brother, sister, niece, uncle, aunt, nephew, somewheres in the family tree that's that person that's gone through addiction, alcoholism, mental illness struggles, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, there's probably even a few of us that have dealt with people that have committed suicide, and they're no longer here. We can't always prevent that, but through a sense of community and open-mindedness and willingness and building trust, we can sure as heck try. And so, yeah, right. I support and advocate that 1,000%. Thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Daryl. And that community, as we get started with this health and wellness series, those of you that want to jump in with us, those of us on the road team, it's going to be the road team private Facebook group. It's only open to CR England drivers, current CR England drivers. So as we get into this, that's where you're going to find the resources, the videos, the recordings, People like Daryl, who was just speaking, who basically is a personal trainer who just happens to drive a truck. Um, and all the things that you need to support you on this journey, plus the rest of us, those of us on the road team and your fellow drivers. Get in there, let's support each other, and let's cheer each other on as we go through this. So Steve, thank you very much. You're the man. Love what you're doing for the industry and just for basically uh, humankind in general. Humankind, mankind. Yeah, it's great stuff. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And if you're open to it, maybe we'll have you back in 6 months and do a little check-in, see how we're doing.
Yeah. So accountability. I want my buddy over there to count how many cheeseburgers he ate since then. I want to. But seriously, thank you guys so much for having me on. I mean, I didn't realize that this was the first time you had somebody from outside the group, so I'm kind of honored to be the first one. I felt like it was a great natural conversation with everybody I talked to. They're great questions. Obviously, everybody that spoke is interested in doing something a little better tomorrow than they thought they did today. And I think that's probably the best place for all of us to start. And if you guys, you want Rolling Strong, your company doesn't have to offer it. You can download the free version of the app, and through that app, will give you access to every single thing we talked about, whether it's cooking or recipes or living on the road, nutrition, mental health support, community, competitions. It's all in there. You can download it for free, and then you can upgrade or buy coaching or do some of those other things as a tool. And if you don't want to do that, snake my number from Darren and text me and give me a call, because I'm crazy enough to just open it up like that. And I would never say no to anybody that wants to talk. And I probably learned something from each of you through the process. So appreciate all you guys. You be safe out there on the road. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you. Thanks for everybody calling in and watching. And if you watch the recording, thank you for doing that. And Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific, talking about food. We'll see you guys there. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Kane.